Hey, crew, and welcome to Trenches, the podcast. Today, we are sitting down with Roopa Annadatha, the founder and CEO of Nomie. After working for 15 years in operations and supply chain at companies like Apple, Peloton, and Microsoft, she left her corporate life to build products for busy parents. Nomie is a line of organic pantry meals made for kids and maybe some busy adults that are ready to be eaten within 10 minutes just by adding water. Let's dig into the trenches. Hey, crew, and welcome back to Trenches. I'm your host, Milan Terez. On this show, we have unfiltered conversations with entrepreneurs in the messy middle. We dig into the experiments, defining decisions, disasters, pivots, and breakthroughs that shaped their companies long before the world was watching. Before we get into it, if you like this episode, which I know you will, please take a moment and like, subscribe, and share this episode to your group chat. Hi, Roopa. How are you today?
Doing well. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
I am so excited to learn more about you, share your story with the Trenches crew, and hear everything about Nomie. So tell us, what trench are you in right now?
The trench I'm in right now is as a solopreneur who's launching her brand in 60 days, and as a mom of two, trying to find the balance in both. There are just times recently over the last couple of weeks where my family, there's so much going on with the family that I haven't been able to put as much into the business, and then vice versa. So I'm still trying to find the right balance where I could give equal to both.
Yeah, I can see that being super difficult and finding the balance. We've had a few moms on the podcast, and I'm always in awe of how you guys do everything, quite literally.
We're struggling, but we do. That's what moms do. They get shit done. You
For
do.
sure. So I want to dive in to your story a little bit. Can you share with us your journey before founding Nomie?
Absolutely. So I started my career at Microsoft. I've always been in supply chain and operations. So I started my career there, then went down to work in San Francisco to work at Apple, and then recently left Peloton. So I left Peloton in December 2024 after spending 15 years. And during those 15 years, I helped launch multiple new products to markets. Actually, I helped launch the original Surface at Microsoft, multiple iPads and iPhones at Apple, and then the treadmill and bike and row at Peloton. So lots of brands that people know, lots of products that people use. So loved my experience there. All of the time I've spent is been on hardware and manufacturing side. So really working on product development, taking it from an idea to execution and then scale. So that operations background really like helps set the stage as I started building Nomie.
That is incredible. That is so cool. Like you worked on the iPad. That's
Yes.
wild. And then even going through the rise of Peloton.
Oh,
I've
yeah.
always wanted a Peloton bike. I hope one day that I do have one and all their other products. But to work at companies like that in your career is a feat. And to be able to bring that into your own product, knowing exactly what it takes to bring these huge brands and these huge products to life, you're now bringing it to yourself in like a
Yes.
new CPG space, which I think is so cool. And I'm going to dig into everything that is your background and your expertise for sure for our founders out
Mhm.
there who are building their own products and in that growth or 60-day launch phase. I'm so excited to dig into that with you. But I want to hear also more about your concept of Nomie. What it was the story of how Nomie came to be.
Yeah. So after my son was born, I have two kids. One's 3 years old, one's 11 months. But after my son, who's older, was born in 2023, I wanted to do something more meaningful, but I didn't know what that was. Like there was no idea that really stuck with me that I was extremely passionate about. That I'm like, I'm going to quit this successful corporate career and go do this. After he became a toddler and I was in the grind of working and then having to cook morning and evenings, breakfast, lunch, dinners for him, I was just so tired. I remember at work, I would dread coming home and then having to make something for him. I know there's a lot of baby-led weaning movements and movements where like, "Oh, just feed your kids what you're eating." It's not that easy. They're not gonna eat what you're eating. Plus, I'm a busy mom. Sometimes I eat, a tortilla with cheese or chips. Like, I have a very girl dinner type of meals, and so, I want him to have the right nutrition. And so, of course, I was spending a lot more time cooking for him and making sure that he was well fed. And then we were actually on an 8-hour flight where all he had were goldfish and crackers. That's it. Like there was nothing else. I think we might have had an apple that he didn't want. And I was like, I remember in that moment thinking, I wish there was a meal solution that was as convenient as those snacks because there's a few frozen meal brands out there for kids, but you can't take them on the go. You need a microwave or a freezer or fridge to store them. So on that flight, in that moment, I remember thinking like I wish there was something as convenient as those snacks, and that's what started the whole journey. I wanted something nutritious without having to compromise.
Yeah, and that is so interesting. As a traveler myself, I've been on many, many a long
Mhm.
flights. Even as an adult, there's not always food that I want to eat, and or I
Yeah.
just eat a ton of snacks. So even as an adult, I do identify with your toddler that there
And
could be better foods.
absolutely. And actually, my original idea started off that this would be a travel meal for on the go. But what was happening is as I started doing some early R&D at home, I was finding myself reaching for these to make it, in the morning, I would take a packet out, put hot water, go get ready myself, come back and it's ready. I put it, in a bowl for him to eat for breakfast. I would make it for lunches. I would make it for dinners. So I was finding myself reaching for this on those daily moments. And that's when I realized like, well, this isn't just for on the go. It's also for those busy nights where you just can't even. And so it's also for those daily moments that parents face every single day.
Yeah, that is incredible. And I want to dig into a little bit of that R&D process. What were those early stages like for you and what really unlocked the process to bringing this to life?
Yes. Well, first things first, I started going into research mode. I was like, what shelf stable meals are there today? And the only one I kept stumbling on is Gerber. They have like a baby meals. And I was really focused on the toddler and preschooler, so older, not baby, but like older than babies. And I didn't want that because they're heavy and they're still not travel friendly. And so I started researching and then I stumbled upon the freeze drying technologies. So it's very popular in the backpacking camping space or as emergency meals. And I thought, like, why can't we bring that technology to day to day? Why is it only for that? Because with freeze drying technology, it actually retains up to 97% of the nutrients. And all you have to do is add hot water. And I'm like, why hasn't anyone figured this out before? And so I started digging in a lot more. Again, this technology has been around for years, but the process that I'm doing where we're actually cooking our meals and freeze drying it, that is still relatively a very, very small niche. There's not a lot of co-manufacturer in America or Canada or Mexico that do this. And so as I was starting to like go with the co-manufacturer search, that's when I was starting to stumble upon and realize like, oh, not a lot of people do this. And also because it's not done in the day-to-day space and it's really done in the backpacking camping space. Most of those brands are family-owned brands or smaller brands that bought a few free shires and they're doing it themselves. With my manufacturing background, like I knew that wasn't going to fly for me. I wanted something that I can immediately scale because I wanted to go out and be able to go into retail immediately. I saw this product as a retail product. Our format's actually great for direct to consumer, but with retail is what gets reach, right, to customers. And with our shelf life, it's perfect. So I started thinking through scale and That was the hardest part because again, there are very minimal manufacturers that do this and also very minimal R&D companies. So after I did the research and I identified this technology, then I started going to talk to R&D companies and I was finding that a lot of them didn't really have experience in this. I finally ended up finding one that had experience who actually helped me work on my first formulations. So that was like really helpful. And then in parallel to that, with my manufacturing background, I started looking at my own co-manufacturers and found that there's one in the US that actually does a co-manufacturing service. And now there's two. So I actually am moved my co-manufacturers from my first one to the second one. So now there's two, but it's very, very limited. And I really like attribute my manufacturing background to even identify this because I think a lot of people would have given up on the idea because of how hard it was to even just find an R&D company and to find a manufacturer that did this for you.
Yeah. The roadblocks along the way, which
Yes.
can truly take you out as an early stage founder, whether you're bootstrapping or not. You know that this product has to be made and you know
Yeah.
that it cannot be made in your kitchen at home. So, thinking about that from the very beginning and then coming very early in the process to saying, well, there's only literally one company that does
Yep.
this. And now there's two. So, I really need these partners to be one, good at what they do, but
Yep.
also two, genuinely good partners because you can take on partners that are not that great. So you discovered freeze drying.
Hmm.
When you did start the early stages of R&D, were you freeze drying at your house or in some type of home kitchen at the very beginning, or did you go straight to like a commercial kitchen?
Neither actually. So I work with the R&D company to do the formulations and just a quick reasoning why I was 6 weeks postpartum when with my second when I started this. So I just didn't have the physical and mental capacity to be at a commercial kitchen to do this myself. Plus home freeze dryers, they cost about 10 grand and they're just not great. They're great for pilot R&D, but they wouldn't get you the results and the taste that would a commercial one would. So I actually partner with an R&D company to do the first formulations and then they did the samples as well. And then once we had the formulation, the recipes to a certain point that we liked, then I actually did a big run, a pilot run at our co-manufacturer, my first co-manufacturer. So I took a chance and spent some capital early on just to make sure like this recipe can scale. And I'm so glad I
Yeah.
did that because there's a lot of things that we found because that was done in December. I'm launching in June. So I have 6 months to really make those updates that if I had waited and continued tweaking it on the R&D bench, we wouldn't have found.
Yeah. And it's so great that you talk so much about your partners from the beginning. It was something that you needed in your postpartum space. You knew you wanted to start this company, but you also knew I can't do it myself. And you've been very open about not building this business on your own.
Mhm.
Who have you hired or connected with to build your support system for this brand and what did they actually do?
Absolutely. So three immediately come to mind, other than my co-manufacturers and R&D. So the very first one is Kelly Bennett. She's a brand strategist in the CPG space. I connected with her in June and to like put together the brand strategy. So I had been having this idea, and again, I've been thinking about it as a travel and then having a day to day, but my messaging was convoluted. So I really wanted someone to take all of my like brain dump and put together a very, very clear strategy that we would go to market with. And that's what she helped me do. I personally think everyone should either get a brand strategist or spend a lot of time thinking through that because a lot of what we identified there translated into our visual identity as well and everything that we're doing with the brand. So she's the first person that I connected with in the CPG space. And then from there, she connected with me with Danielle Calabresi, who is an ops lead. I know you've had some of her clients on the podcast as well. She's absolutely fantastic, an ex founder. So she knows the pitfalls of what it takes to build a brand. And she's a mom, so she's just badass. Love her. So it was great partnering with her. Although I had an ops background, I didn't have CPG background. So she was able to coach, mentor, train me on that and help me like understand the ops aspects of the CPG space, plus put together, our early financial models, our go-to-market channel strategy, what makes sense for the brand in what year. So that was really, really helpful. And then my third partner is my design agency. So Bonita Studios, they are a group of 3 women that started this. And actually Danielle connected me with them. So you could kind of see the connections here. So Kelly connected me with Danielle. Danielle connected me with Benita. And they have just been so wonderful, taking Kelly's strategy, Danielle's kind of go to market alignment on what channels we need to be in, to take all of that information and then drill it into both the visual identity and packaging that makes sense. So it's been so wonderful. I have such a strong group of women that I know I can always lean on if I need any help. And then, sorry, there is one more person, is Katie Warren. She is a copywriter. So she's really helped me think through what the brand voice should sound like. I knew I didn't want my brand to put down any other brands because I think one of the things people don't talk enough in this better for you space is it's expensive. Products are expensive and not a lot of people have access to that. So when we say better for you, that's like when I hear better for you, I'm thinking like expensive, right? Because that's just how it is in the CPG space. Between all of the margins everyone takes, by the time it gets from like a product that you make to shelf, it's really expensive. And so, I think for me, it's really important that when we say like, hey, this is better for you, and we're not putting down another brand, because they might have to have done that because of cost reasons. A lot of time it is because of cost. And that was really important to me. And she really helped me nail that down, making sure how we show that, yes, we have all these benefits, but not at the expense of anyone else.
Yeah, absolutely. That is incredible. And for anybody out there, go and check out the getnomie.com website, because it is a one beautifully designed website, but also the copy on the website is amazing. It feels like a masterclass of a pre-launch website that is fully built out. So please go check it out. It is really, really cool. And I can see how having all of these strategists and experts on your team from the very beginning, with also having a very strict launch date, has really propelled you forward and built momentum and built traction every single step of the way. And now you're about 60 days out from launch, which is incredible.
Oh my God.
I
Yeah.
won't bring it up too many times because I don't need you
Okay.
to stress out while we're recording. But you are in the space of go to market. And you mentioned when we were chit chatting before the podcast that you had a go to market strategist. So for our other pre launch founders out there, what has having a go to market strategy helped your brand do?
Danielle really helped me on the go to market strategy. And I think the biggest thing that having a go to market strategist helps you with is like what channels to focus on, what really makes sense for you. I wanted to directly go into retail, but she helped me think through like, hey, my product's lightweight. It's small. It's perfect for shipping. So really wanting to focus on more of like direct to consumer, Amazon, e-com retailers like Thrive Market, Hunger Root. There's a huge benefit going there. Plus, we have a very long shelf life. So it's really, really helpful. So really thinking through like one, yes, like I have a vision of what I want, but what are the right steps to get there to make sure also I'm not burning through cash, with direct to consumer, Amazon, like the margins just tend to be better than going to retail. And so like how can we position ourselves so that, we're thinking through how to best optimize those channels in parallel to getting into retail, but those channels that have higher margins, like let's try to optimize that first. So those are some of the things that she helped me through. And now that we have that channel strategy, that's really clear because as I think about fundraising and raising, I know exactly what I'm going into. I have the vision and I have data driven information to support that vision.
Yeah, absolutely. And data and data keep coming up so much
Yes.
more, and modeling and all of that is coming up so much more in the podcast, which I love because I personally love learning about it. But it's also such a helpful thing for fellow founders out there because it's not something that you think about from the get go. You always think about, how do I solve this problem? What is going to be the actual product? But then there aren't these conversations of pricing and margins and
Yeah.
things pretty much until you're way too deep.
Yeah.
For sure.
For all the founders that are listening, that is something I would really invest in early on. Get a financial model. If you don't know how to build one, I mean, tools like Claude now are so incredible because they connect directly to Google Sheets and actually formulate in Google Sheets as well to help build you one. There is just no reason why, with all these tools today, that we can't build this and really stress test your pricing and your cost of goods sold because that is what will break you. If you don't have enough margin to give away, especially if you're thinking about in retail or you have a frozen or fresh product that's heavier, you have to have those margins. If not, you're not going to make it. I mean, that's a hard lesson I had to learn in CPG with hardware and other stuff, especially like Peloton, Apple, Microsoft. Like yes, hardware was always expensive, but we had software to go with it. So a lot of margin came from software and selling subscriptions. You don't have that same thing in CPG. It's the product. So every product you sell, you have to have a margin on that one unit.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is just a curiosity question, but you've mentioned a lot about weight. And
Hmm.
I've never talked to another founder who has talked about the actual weight of their product. And I'm thinking back to it, I'm like, I probably should have, but you've brought up weight a lot. So, for these models or for any founders out there that are making a physical product, what role has weight played in your product and bringing it to market?
Sure. So, what freeze drying does at the core of it is at very low temperatures, it removes water and moisture from the meal or the food. And so you have about 2% of the weight of what it originally was. That makes it super lightweight. So, our meals are about between 6 to 7 ounces once it's been like made. However, they're about 50 grams. So our packaging is extremely lightweight and weight plays a huge part because actually weight doesn't show up, in a COGS, like a cost of goods sold. It shows up below the line because it's in freight, right? Like it's in the cost that you actually ship to a customer. So that was really something like an added benefit. I wasn't actually thinking about weight when I went down the freeze drying path. It was more about the shelf life and the nutrition because with freeze drying it retains up to 97% of the nutrition of the meal. But the added benefit was weight. Because our meals are so easy and lightweight to ship, I can literally put it in like a parcel instead of a big heavy box. So, the cost to shipping to a customer or to retail are also much better.
That is so interesting. It's going to make me think a lot about past founders that have been on the podcast and everything that I purchase from now on. I'm gonna
Yeah.
be thinking about, what did it cost for them to like this product? It's either heavy or super light. Like I am going to be thinking about it all the time.
I'm glad.
Yeah, that is awesome. Along with the weight and the freeze drying, you've also talked about your shelf stability. So,
Mhm.
what led you to make the decision to be shelf stable and not in the freezer aisle?
Absolutely. So I actually had an idea to do baby frozen meals back in 2023 when my son was born, but I knew the risk of that, especially with like kids' food. With frozen and fresh, the shelf life one is extremely short. It's anywhere between a week to 6 months. But over that too, it's really there's a lot of risk for spoilage, and there's a lot of risk for shipping as well, because there's also not a lot of companies that have refrigeration or freezer to ship truckloads across America. And so for me, I knew I wanted something shelf stable. One, for the for the logistical reasons, but also because initially the idea started because I wanted a travel meal. Like, I wanted a meal that I could make it on a flight while we're traveling in a car at a park. Like, I really wanted the portability of it. And so I knew I wanted something shelf stable. I just didn't know that that was freeze drying until a lot later.
What does being shelf stable change in the production of your product or the manufacturing of your product?
So it adds one additional step for me, like specifically for my product, because we actually cook our meals, freeze it, and then freeze dry it. So there's like an added step. So our manufacturing process, I would say, is a bit more premium than just a fresh or frozen product, but we make up for that in shipping cost, shelf life, spoilage, and all of these other costs that you get down the road that you don't,
Mm.
you get, because what happens is you put this in a retail store. Let's say you have a frozen or fresh product and it spoils, or it's like expiry date, right? Because so let's talk about the supply chain, right? So a product goes from the manufacturer that you did it at, or your commercial kitchen if you're doing it yourself. Then it goes to like a 3PL if you have one. Then it goes to a distributor if you're doing retail. Then from a distributor, it gets into a retail shelf, most likely a retail distributor, and then their stores. So there's a lot of points of supply chain. And if your product is not moving fast enough in retail, and you have, let's say, a 2-month shelf life, all you're going to have a lot of issues if at distributor, like a lot of product that just got spoiled. And so there's a lot of costs that you don't see until later, because now you have to throw that product away.
Mm.
So I'm taking a premium, or adding a premium in my cost of goods sold at the beginning to not have that later on.
Okay, that makes sense. She's giving us a supply chain 101 class this podcast episode, which is incredible because we have not had anybody deep dive into supply chain, and I certainly know very little about supply chain. So I, along with all of our listeners and watchers, am learning a lot this episode, which
Love it.
I am loving.
I'm sorry. Is it too much? Should I dial down the supply
No,
chain? It's okay.
no, I love it. I love it. It's gonna be it's so helpful because that's part of the point of this podcast is I want to speak to founders who have these expert backgrounds and can bring that expertise and knowledge to other founders. Maybe there's
Mhm.
another CPG founder out there who's still 100 days out, or maybe even in the idea stage and may want to create a shelf stable product, may want to create one that's freeze dried, may want to
Totally.
create one that's going to live in that freezer section. And while they're making their concept, while they're working on their original idea, they listen to this episode and they hear you literally break down what they're about to go up against, and they can make really informed decisions for their future and their brand.
Yeah.
So I personally love it, and I think our crew members
Perfect.
will too. And another part of your brand is that it is certified organic. And this is
Mhm.
another technical question, but how does a brand become certified organic?
Yeah, so there's two pieces. So the first piece is ingredients. You have to, every ingredient must be organic. So there's two levels of organic certification, but if you actually want the USDA logo, 95% plus of your ingredient list has to be organic. That's the only way you can get a logo on. If it's 70% plus, you can say it's made with organic ingredients, but you don't get the actual logo. So we are certified organic. All of our ingredients are organic. So that's piece one. I will say organic is, again, very expensive. If yours, I mean, ingredient by ingredient, it really differs. But if you're like looking at dairy and some other specific ingredients, the cost between organic and not organic is, it could be like 3 to 4x. So definitely think through, like, who's your audience? Are they going to need organic, or could you even go non-GMO and or conventional? Because I'm targeting kids, like, I wanted it to be certified organic because I knew my audience would want it certified organic. So yeah, ingredients is one, but apart from that, your facility that you're actually making it also has to be certified organic. So that's something that was really important to me as I went and identified like manufacturers. Again, there's now two, and only one was certified organic. So that's who we're going with. But yeah, there's two pieces to that. And then also with ingredients too, make sure you actually get the documentation from the supplier, like their actual certificate of organic certification.
You've spoken a lot about having only two options out there and just fingers crossed praying that they met all of your criteria. But for any other very particular founders out there who are working with ingredients who have different flavor profiles, like I'm so excited to get into your recipe testing in a second, all of that stuff matters because we hear so much in the marketing world, made with organic products versus certified organic. And nobody can really tell what is true and what is false, or if it's just marketing jargon, or if it's actually tested in the product. And then there becomes distrust within the consumer base. So, as a founder, doing that due diligence along the way and being able to see all of your partners along the way are actually backing up these claims with certificates or authentication really matters because at the end of the day, it's your brand, it's your face. If you're making these claims and if a customer finds out that it's not, it's on you. So I think that's
Mhm.
super helpful to early stage founders out there. And since you're dropping gems this episode of all these little hidden tips and tricks for our founders out there looking to make an innovative product in the
Mhm.
CPG space, what would be your top three things you wish you knew before starting in the CPG world?
Yeah, first, I would say like try to connect with people even remotely close to what you're doing. So there's a lot of now backpacking freeze dried brands that I'm connecting with because they have the experience. And so I've connected with a lot of founders now, but I truly wish I had spoken with them much earlier. So even if there's anyone in an adjacent category to you, like try to connect with them as much as possible. Two, if you're doing R&D with a company, ask them for references, or especially if you're doing CPG, join communities like Startup CPG, Shelf Made, and then ask the community, have you worked with this R&D company? So unfortunately, the R&D company I partner with at the beginning, I chose not to continue because the results just weren't there. And then as I started talking about it a little bit more, I've heard from other founders that they had a similar experience to me. So I do wish I had asked those questions in the community like much earlier. And then the third thing is that it is, if you do go with an R&D company, it's going to be expensive. It's not going to take 2 rounds. It's not going to take 3 rounds. I think I'm on my sixth round right now, because it is so niche. Even in the backpacking space, some things I'm doing it hadn't been done before. So just know that it's going to take time, um, and really ensure like you have the runway to have that time and put a product out that you feel good about.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody always says double the money, double the time.
So 10x the money, man, and 10x the time. Yeah.
That's been so interesting. And for anybody out there who hasn't seen her packaging yet, we're going to switch a little bit of gears here. And I want to hear about the actual physical pouch. You've talked a lot
Okay.
about how the initial idea was needed to be travel friendly, on the go friendly. Tell us how the packaging process has been and who has played a key role in bringing the physical product to life.
Yeah. First, I'll talk about that on the format of our pouch, like why I chose pouch versus a cup. So when we think just add water or instant, I think a cup, right? Like that's what first comes to mind. There's a lot of brands out there that use it. But as a mom, I wanted something I could just drop it into my purse. And because the product was lightweight, like having it in a cup, you're now having all this space in the cup. It's wasted space. So again, I started thinking about shipping and everything else that goes with it. And so that's why I chose to go with the pouch route. Um, and essentially with our pouch, what's called a gusseted bottom. So when you open it, you can kind of like open the bottom up to have it stand up. But if you don't do that, it just lays flat. So it's like this super, super thin. It's so easy. You could put like 10 of them in a purse, or a diaper bag. So that's why I chose to go with the pouch versus a cup, which is what people were really used to. And then the second thing in terms of the actual packaging of it, did like at this point, like I had, met with some founders in the backpacking space. And so I asked them, like, hey, what's the right material that you're using for this? Because it has to withstand boiling water or hot
Mhm.
water. And so we have to make sure that the outside doesn't get hot. Right. On top of that, we also have the 2-year shelf life. So we also had to make sure that when the product is in, there's enough barrier in the packaging for that 2-year shelf life. I also reached out to a packaging company, so also used their expertise plus the backpacking founders' expertise to come up with like what the layers would like of the packaging. And then now for the fun part, the actual visual identity of our packaging. Again, that's our wonderful design agency that did that. So our product is for kids, but I'm targeting parents, right? They're the ones
Yes.
that are shopping. So I knew I wanted, first of all, from like a visual identity point, I wanted something that would catch someone's eye on a shelf. And when you look at kids' brands, they're all like black and or green and white and we're nutritious. And I want fun. I want to be fun and I want to stick out, on a shelf. I don't want to be like anyone else. And so I knew I wanted bright colors. And then the addition of the mascots were because, again, feeding kids, especially the age range I'm targeting 2 to 6, is hard because at this stage, they're at the pickiest. And so I knew that even just through my own toddler, having him involved in the actual cooking part of it made it more likely that he would eat it. So the mascots were really to delight and get the kid excited about eating the meals because step one is they want this. So now that I've tested the packaging with my own toddler, who's by the way is extremely picky, he's like, I want this. He doesn't even say like the meal anymore. He's like, I want Zuzu or I want Mac, I want Beanie. He just says the character names. And so I wanted the character on there. So the brightness, to really make it fun and also attract my target customer. And then the mascots on there to really delight the kids to, want to actually eat the meal.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that you have a little co-founder to
Yes.
test quite literally everything with. You're like, "Do you love this little character mascot?" And he can be like, "Yes or no." So I
Yeah.
really love that you're building this brand, yes, for parents, but you're involving your children and your toddler in the process because they are your subset target market, which is which is a new one.
Yeah.
Having a 2 to 4-year-old as your target as your secondary market is incredible, and you
Mhm.
were right. You have to make sure that kids actually like it because kids are
Yeah.
very picky. I was also a very picky kid. In some ways, I am still a picky adult. You like what you like and you don't what you don't. And that
Yeah.
only kind of gets worse as you get older because you're like, I'm not going to spend my money on something that I literally don't like. I worked for
Yeah.
this money.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
So I totally get that. And while you're bringing your kids along the way, I want to talk a little bit about your product development and your recipe testing. Go over your flavors and talk
Okay.
to us about the mascots. And then how did you actually develop the flavors?
Sure. So, starting with the flavors themselves, I did a survey early last year to understand what are people eating. And so, my first 3 meals are butternut mac and cheese, zucchini pesto orzo, and black bean and veggie rice. So, 2 are more, I would say, American comfort. The butternut mac and cheese is comfort. The pesto is more American classic. And the black bean and veggie rice is my intro to more of a global flavor. So it's Mexican inspired. Mexican cuisine, actually, in America, is the number one most eaten cuisine. So that's why I chose those 3 flavors. My future, too, I definitely want to have really lean into that globally inspired because as a mom to a picky toddler, I really wish I had something like this that I would have just given it to him even when he was younger. to kind of get his palate up and running, you know? And not lean in just to the beige foods. So that's where like the meals came from. And then the development of those meals, again, I work with the R&D company. So they did like the initial recipes for it. We tested it. I gave them feedback. They went back a second round. And then it was, I would say 80% there. But at this point, I had to make a decision. I was like, I could keep iterating, but let me just see what the feedback on this is because I am one person. I want to get feedback on a larger scale before I continue iterating because I might think something is okay or not okay, and someone else might think the opposite. So that's when I actually did the pilot run at my initial co-manufacturer. And I actually then decided to go to the Winter Fancy Fair and just exhibit pre-launch. At the same time I did Winter Fancy, I also did a 70 family pilot testing. So
Wow.
just in my Jersey City community, like I reached out in our mom groups and I said, "Hey, is anyone interested in testing this? It's made in a certified facility. It's safe." And then yeah, I had 70 families test. I think it was like 80 kids and got a lot of feedback, of like what worked, what didn't work. And then on top of that, so that was from like customers, right? Like actual customers, parent and kids. And then with the Winter Fancy, that was also great at the same time because I was getting feedback from retailers, distributors, and kind of the CPG industry of what they thought about this form, like this format, this meals concept. So it was great just to have all of this feedback because now over the last 6 months, I've just been taking that feedback and iterating on it. So on the recipe specifically, our rating was a 4.2 across all three meals. And really it was the pesto that was bringing us down. I think the butternut and the black bean were like 4.7. They tested really high. So I'm like, this is perfect, but I think we could do better. So that's, taking that feedback and my own feedback, like I'm still actually iterating on the recipes. We're very close, hopefully in the next week.
Fingers
Yes.
crossed. And you dropped so much there. It's
Yeah.
incredible. What I loved is you got out to real customers in your community and your community really showed up for you. What was your strategy for getting in front of them? I know you said you contacted them in mom groups and things like that.
Mhm.
What were some other tactics that you tried that maybe didn't work? And which ones really, really came through for you to getting that initial market feedback? And
Yeah, so I initially started targeting much larger mom groups and posting there, but then I actually went back and I have more friends of friends or smaller groups with maybe 50 to 100 people. So I started targeting like smaller communities and smaller groups because I feel like in those larger WhatsApp groups or Facebook groups, your messages get lost. And so really targeting something smaller and then more niche to you. So I was targeting ones that are specifically for toddlers or preschoolers because I wanted that 2 to 6 year range. And then also asking people, hey, do you know any of your friends? Because in the kids space, word of mouth is the biggest advertisement that you can get. You can have them run meta ads. You can like run every single ad, but that doesn't be if a mom gives me a recommendation, I'm gonna go buy it. Like that's like I won't even ask questions. I'm like I'll do a bit of research, but I'll trust them, I'll go get it. To at least try to see if this fits for our family. So really just like leaning on people and saying like, do you know someone else that would be interested in it? And if so, can you connect me?
yeah, that is
Yeah.
so good to know for anybody who's out there doing market research in that phase. I'm in that phase currently in my MBA program of doing cold outreach and TikTok DMs and everything to get in front of people. So I'm always very interested to see how other people are validating their product and the tactics that they're using to get in front of their target customer, which again, you have two, which is so
Yeah.
cool, which is amazing. And you mentioned going to Winter Fancy Fair this
Mhm.
year. How did you get into the fair?
Yeah, so it's hosted by an organization called a Specialty Food Association. So they have a course called Maker Prep, and I did the course actually from July to December. And when you go through the course, you graduate at the next fair that they or like food show that they host. And that happened to be a winter fancy fair. So I had an extremely discounted booth. I think our booth was like $600. And I'm like, there's no way I can pass up on this. This is the cheapest any booth at any exhibit will be. And so I didn't actually make the decision until like 3 weeks before that I was going to go do it. But we did the pilot run. I had all these samples. I was starting to do feedback testing, and I'm like, you know what? Just let's just go do it. Like, let's just go do it. So that's how I was able to secure a table at the food show.
That is so cool. I wish I had a picture of what your booth looked like. But for anybody who is thinking about exhibiting at Winter Fancy Fair or an Expo West is a little bit different because that's you can go really big there. But
Hmm.
for anybody who is going to start doing pop-ups or farmers markets or anything that has a physical space for your brand to show up. How did you build your booth? Like,
Hmm.
literally, how did you build your booth?
Yeah. So again, we had 3 weeks, and we had like a table, so it wasn't like a full blown a 10 by 10 booth. But it was a good size. So the first thing I did is actually before I accepted and like actually said yes to Winter Fancy Fair, I called my design team and I said, "Can you make something happen in 3 weeks?" And by the way, this is Christmas time. So they were like, they talked amongst themselves. They're like, "I think we can do something." So they helped me create. I would say if you're doing a booth, the key things you need business cards, you need a tablecloth or something to show your visual identity. You need to have a sell sheet for retailers and distributors. And of course, like the samples, right? And then something to make the booth look nice. So, I would have loved to have done more, but just within the time and the fact that it was just up against Christmas and New Year's, we just didn't. But like I thought it turned out really well. Yeah. We had all the
Aw.
key things that we need, but I would say the main thing for booths is your energy. Like you could have the best looking booth, but if you don't have the right energy, it's still not going to work out. So the tip that I got a week before the exhibit is like be in front of the booth, not behind it. So
Mm.
I was always like in front of the booth trying to bring people in and it's like, hey, do you want a sample? Versus like waiting for people to come to me.
Yeah, making sure you're proactive and
Hmm.
optimizing your time there. I always love to hear how founders break into the market at these events and make themselves stand out. So that is also another great hidden gem for anybody listening. Stand in front of your booth, guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stand in front
Stand in
of your
front of
table. Don't just hide behind the table. I love that. And also, while you were at Winter Fancy Fair, you received some press from Nate and Jenna at
I
Express
know.
Checkout, which
Gosh.
are friends of the podcast, love them dearly. And they gave you a shout out in one of their recap Substack newsletters of the event. So, what was your strategy on optimizing your time and meeting other people in the CPG space or retailers or people that are not in your actual consumer base?
Yeah, so I mean, on the press side, that really wasn't top of mind for me. Although I would definitely say for any CPG founder out there, even though you're pre-launch, do a show because the press that you will get from there really propels you forward and like puts your name on the map. And that's what their article did for Nomie is it really put us on the map of retailers, investors, CPG experts. So I had a lot of like outreach from the show saying like we saw Nomi, the product and concept sounds amazing. So I would say that that was like the most helpful. And then for me, like I knew the retailers I was targeting. So again, this was in San Diego, so I knew there was a lot of West Coast buyers, West Coast retailers. I didn't know if there were going to be any national buyers there, but really making sure you're going to any pre and post show events. So there again, groups like Startup CPG, Shelf Made, and just other CPG experts that always put on shows or happy hours where they have industry experts. They'll have retail buyers there as well that you want to connect with. So really also like not just focusing on the show, but focusing on everything else that's going around it, because most of the conversations actually happen in those rooms and you want to be there. So that's like tip number one. Tip number two is like do your homework, definitely know who you're going to. Specifically if you're looking for buyers, send them LinkedIn DMs So I LinkedIn DM'd multiple buyers and I'm like, hey, I'm at this booth. Just a quick snippet of like our innovative product that we're launching in the kids space. And then, hey, would love for you to join. Actually, oh, and I would say the third thing is like stay at your booth. I know it's really, really hard and like you're gonna have so much FOMO of missing out, but especially that early stage, no one brings the energy like you do. And I decided like an hour before we were shutting down on the third day to leave, and like a buyer came, and then he actually messaged me on LinkedIn after, was like, hey, I actually stopped by, and but I did try your samples, it was great, wish I could have met you. I'm like, why did I leave? So I mean, it happens, like it's fine, you need to have breaks, but try to be there as much as possible if you can, and like because you can speak about your brand more than anyone else can, and that's energy is what propels you forward in this stage.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's great to hear how you are taking all of these moments for what they are, as many as they can. And now you're 60 days out. I'm sorry that I said it again. I'm sorry. I just
It's
realized that.
okay.
Trying not to stress you out.
No, no, I'm all good.
But as you're in this crunch times, this
Mhm.
last stretch, which is both exciting and yes, very stressful, how are you preparing? What does this 60 days to launch countdown look like?
Yeah. So on the operational front, it's making sure my co-packer is up and running, all the ingredients are ordered, the final formula is done, and the boring part too, like regulatory reviews. We have to complete that to get packaging completed, packaging ordered, delivered. So all of that groundwork, but I've spent a lot of time focusing on my go-to-market. So, what channels do I want to launch? What's our promo offer is going to be at launch, designing our email campaigns as well. So really thinking through, the email flows because I will be launching direct to consumer first. I want to make sure like all the email flows are set up, really using email and SMS marketing to capture customers. What are the different like ad structure I'm going to do? Is it like UGC, meta ads? What's the budget? Who do I need to bring on to support me in all of this? So that's where I spend a lot of my time. Again, I spoke so much about operations, and that comes so naturally to me, even though this is a full new space. There's a lot of learnings for me in ops side for CPG, but the area that doesn't come naturally to me is the branding, the marketing side. So I've spent a lot of time over the last like month or so, like talking to people, interviewing because I want to bring someone on fractionally to help me execute on all of these ideas that I have, but like really take that, build it into a strategy, and then go help me execute it. Not just a strategy, because I think women, again, especially in our space, are over mentored. So I'm like, strategy is great, but we got to execute. I need people that will go execute with me. And so that's where I've spent a lot of my time is interviewing, trying to find the right partner.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're out there listening to the podcast and you have expertise in any of the things that Rupa has mentioned, give her a shout out, send her a DM, send her an email because she is looking for hardcore operators right now. And I think that there is a ton of them who listen to this podcast. And as you're building out your team and moving things forward by yourself, but also with all of your consultants and strategists. How have you been able to balance or find balance as a mom, a wife, a founder, and everything else that goes into life in a day to day basis? So, how have you built balance?
Well, I don't believe that there is balance. That does not exist. Like when if I'm working on something, another area of my life is suffering. Not maybe not suffering, but it's not being tended to. That's just something I have to live with. This is something like I need to focus on. I would love to be with my baby right now, but she's with a caregiver because I need to focus on the business. So I think balance is a myth. I don't believe in it. It's a blend, and I've always felt that way. And like it's it's really really hard, especially as moms, to come to term with. Emma Grede recently just went viral because she's like, I'm a 3-hour mom. And
Yes.
I love her. I love her so much because she has so much conviction in every single thing that she says. And at first, I'm like, I don't know how I feel about this. I sat with it. I'm like, wait, I'm a 3-hour mom because the 3 hours, like, in the evening that we spend with the kids, like, that is the most cherished time because it's, like, all of our both our kids are there. My son's in daycare, my daughter's with her caregiver, my husband's home, so we're, like, playing, we're making dinner, we're just, like, hanging out. I'm like, "That's what they're gonna remember." That's the moments that they're gonna remember. They're not remembering, like, what's happening during the day. So, I really sat with it, and I'm like, "That's the mom." But that's you just have to, like, figure out what that quality time is for you. And for us, it's the evenings, from 5 to 8. And after my son goes to bed, I'm back at work, I have my laptop open. So, yeah, you just got to find what works for you. I also don't think there's one right way. I'm not saying like Emma Grede is right. It's not going to jive for every woman because some moms and parents and women just want something different, and that's okay.
Yeah, and I love Emma Grede. I'm a stan for Emma Grede for sure, and I've seen that clip also going around in everybody's takes on the internet, and like you said, if more people actually think about it, the average mom who has a 9 to 5 or is a founder or does anything,
Yeah.
if you really break down the hours, you probably are.
Yeah.
Maybe even like 6 if you wanna count the morning when you're, making breakfast and things like that. Because there's, like, the
Yeah.
big chunk of time at the evenings, but there are those, like, little moments right before help comes or you drop them off to school, whatever that is, you probably do fall into that category.
Yeah.
And then you don't add the sleeping hours, but there's an age range when your kids still wake up in the middle of the night and they had a nightmare and they still wake you up.
Yep.
So you're still a
Exactly.
mom, like in your sleep. You're just like not necessarily counting those 6 hours of sleeping time, but you definitely feel like it when it's 3 o'clock in the morning and your kid's literally standing over your bed saying, Mom, I had a bad dream, and you're like, "Come on, climb it." So,
Yeah. Exactly.
it's
Yeah.
not like it's this strict 3 hour.
Exactly. Yeah, again, she goes viral for all the right reasons. She's very divisive, but again, she people that follow her, there's a reason. And what I actually love about her, and I've been thinking a lot about this recently, is she knows who she's for
Mhm.
and who she's not. And I actually that made me kind of over the last week or 2 weeks since it went viral, been really thinking about me, myself, but also the brand. I think it's really important in the brand building space. Like you need to know who you're for and who you're not. Like I'm
Yeah.
not going to be for the moms that love to cook and like want to make homemade meals. Like that's not me as a mom. And that's okay. Like I love that and I would actually wish I would had time and energy and like love to cook every day, but that's not me. So the product is for parents like me and there's the product is not for some parents and that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. In my MBA program, we've learned about inclusions list and exclusions list for your target customer. And I've found in my program, figuring out the exclusions list is way more helpful than it is
Mhm.
finding who is included. Because if you figure out who it's not for,
Yeah.
that the inclusions list starts to shape itself.
Mhm.
Once you've realized I'm not for this person and either it's data or it's lifestyle or it's personality, like whatever that moniker is. Once you figure out who it is not for, it is so much easier to see who it is for.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I love that. I
100%.
I wish I actually did that exercise a lot earlier. Like, I really focused on who we're for, but not who we're not for. And I absolutely agree with you. I do think spending more time on who you're not for will strengthen your conviction to who you are for.
Yeah, it makes the road much, much clearer. And for our ambitious crew members out there who are going to be following you, they follow Emma Grede. What has kept you going while you've been in the trenches?
I mean, I don't have a plan B. I could definitely go back to my corporate job if I wanted to and kind of go back to what I was doing, but I don't want that, for me. And so as I think through building Nomie, I have my kids in the back of my mind. I don't come from a trust fund. I So everything I'm building is for them and their future. So that really what keeps me going is I want to be doing something meaningful that I enjoy, but I also want to be building generational wealth for them. So that really what keeps me going is that I want them to know the value of hard work, but also make sure that they're covered.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I love that. It's truly a parent-led, mom-led brand from every single aspect. You're doing this to build wealth for your kids that you didn't have, to help other parents who have picky kids. Like, it is so centered and focused and rooted in personal story, in personal problems, and also then paying it forward and making sure that you help anybody out there who has who's going the same path. So I genuinely, genuinely love that. And zooming out, looking at
Mhm.
your life, your kid's life at the end of Nomie or beyond
Mhm.
Nomie, what is beyond the trenches for you?
Absolutely. So my long-term goal is to become an angel investor or like a mentor of some sort to other female founders. I don't know if that's in the CPG space across all, but really want to, because for me right now, like there's a lot of people that I look up to that have helped me in my journey. And I would love to do the same and give back to other founders because this journey is extremely lonely. And especially for female founders, I mean, the VC capital is still less than 2%. For BIPOC female founders, that's less than 0.5%. And me being one of them too, in that demographic, I want to make sure that the underrepresented have a path, especially like with building brands takes a lot of capital. And if I have that capital in the future, when I have the capital in the future, I want to be able to give back.
I love that. There's a lot of aspiring angel investors who come on this podcast, and I was speaking to another founder, and she comes from an investment background, and I asked her, I was like, how do we raise that percentage of women
Hmm.
who get venture capital? And her answer was, we need more women in the room. We need more women on the other side of the table. So it is incredible to hear so many female founders on this podcast when I ask this question say, I want to be on the other side of the table. I want to
Yeah.
be able to help the next female founder in especially a capital way, because from building it yourself, capital can make or break it, but it
Hmm.
also for sure helps. And I cannot wait for the very soon coming day that we have more women on the other side of the table.
Yeah.
So, on that note, for our closing question today, what is something you wish you could tell everyone listening to this episode?
So I would say find your own path. And I know that's extremely generic, but I try to reverse engineer blueprints of other brands and other founders and like other journeys. And what I found is that it just didn't fit with my brand. Like it didn't hit. So I would say really, really think through, continue going back to your brand strategy, who you're for, what you're doing, and like we talked about like who you're for and who you're not for, and have that conviction because and figure out what your unique point of view is because there's so many brands that sound very similar and you're like, okay, well, what's different about you? Like, why would I buy you over someone else? So really, really thinking through like what that voice sounds like as well. How do you want your customers to feel when they're buying your product, seeing you on social? So really think through like, your identity, like really your identity. Think of your brand as a person. How do you want them to be? For me, if I were to describe it in 2 words, is mom bestie vibe. We don't judge, we listen.
Mhm. Mm, I love that. That is amazing advice for sure. So, everyone, please take that to heart this week. Find your path as a founder, as an entrepreneur, as a person, because it can lead you so, 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 so far. So, I wanted to say thank you, Rupa, for sharing your origin story here with us on Trenches. I can't wait to see what you build and what will happen in the very near future with Nomie. For all of the crew members out there, please go follow Nomie at Get Nomie on Instagram. And since we are only 60 days out from launch, you guys, head to the website www.getnomie.com to join the waitlist so you can be notified when Nomie is ready to ship. Thank you again, Rupa, for joining us here on Trenches. And I cannot wait to see you and the crew next episode.
Thank you,
Bye.
Milan.
Don't forget to follow us on Apple and Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Your likes, comments, and ratings make such a big difference in improving the show for each and every crew member. Also, if you're not already, come and join us on TikTok and Instagram at Trenches the Podcast, where we don't just share clips, we're creating a network of co-builders in the comments. Each post is designed to be a truly impactful addition to your scroll that will actually help you improve your journey in many different ways. Now, since you're already a part of the crew, this is how you step inside. By allocating to the fund on Patreon, you become a stakeholder in Trenches the Podcast and officially join our cap table. With access to private content, early drops, resources, and chats reserved for people truly in the work. Here is where you get the tools and the behind the scenes of what it really takes to get beyond the trenches. Your seat gives you direct access to contribute and make long-term decisions for our crew while finding community with fellow builders. It's time to take your seat at the table. Our mission is simple: make entrepreneurship less lonely. I'll see you in the next episode.